would you like to learn how to solve one-step linear equations? Of course you would. That is why you are watching this video. One-step linear equations look like these, and there is only one step to solve each of them. You might be able to look at some of these and instantly see the solution, by the way. For example, to solve this equation here means to find a value for x that makes it true. What number could I put here to make it true? And you might instantly be able to see that the answer is 3. And sure enough, in a moment we will see, yep, the answer is 3. But it is critical, it is really, really important that you follow the structure of the working out. And by that I mean you include one equal sign on each line, you put a therefore symbol on before each new equation, and importantly, we only do one operation on each line, and it's going to be an opposite or an inverse operation. And finally, we copy down the entire line just with the changes that you're making. It is very tempting from here to jump straight to the answer, which is x is 3. You can just look at this and see the answer. But we are practicing, we are practicing the skills, the structure, so that when we have much harder problems, like these, that you feel comfortable solving them one step at a time. Okay, so what does that structure look like? I know that when I get x and I add 2, the answer is 5. So we would like to undo this operation of adding 2. We would like to do the opposite of adding 2. And the opposite of adding 2 is subtracting 2. So the plus 2 on this side turns into the opposite on the other side. Subtract 2 or negative 2 on the other side. Do you notice that everything else, the x gets copied down, the equals gets copied down, the 5 gets copied down. Everything else gets copied down, but I just changed one thing. This plus 2 turned into minus 2. That is important. On the next line, we can do a similar thing where we copy everything down, but we can replace this. 5 take 2. 5 take 2, well, we know what that is. We can replace that with 3. Everything else gets copied down. I have a therefore, I copy down the x, I copy down the equals. It's just that I replace that with 3. Let's try another one. 7x equals 35. You can imagine I've got a number here and then a letter. This is the coefficient. So there's an invisible symbol here, and the invisible symbol is a times. This actually means 7 times x. So x has been multiplied by 7. What is the opposite of multiplying by 7? It is dividing by 7. So the times by 7 on this side turns into a divide by 7 on the other side. Few things to notice here. Number one, I copied down the x, I copied down the equals, I copied down the 35. Everything else I copy down. It's just that the multiply by 7 I have turned into a divide by 7. You'll note that I write divide as a fraction. This means 35 divided by 7. And the reason is that when the answer might not be a whole number, maybe the answer might actually be a fraction. In this case, we can actually figure out this fraction. We can simplify it. And if you can simplify it, please do. 35 divided by 7 is 5. So therefore, x equals 5. Everything else I have copied down, the therefore, the x, the equals, and I've replaced this with a simpler version of that fraction, which is 5. Sometimes you might not be able to simplify. We have another one here. I've got q divided by 5 equals 7. So q has been divided by 5. The opposite of dividing by 5 is multiplying by 5. So the divide by 5 will disappear from this side, and it will turn into a multiply by 5 on the other side. You see that? It was a divide by 5, shook, but now it is a times by 5 on the other side. Everything else gets copied down. The q, the equals, the 7, all copied down. And we can copy down again, therefore q equals 7 times 5 hang on, we can figure that out. 7 times 5 is 35. You might notice that these two questions are very similar. That is purely a coincidence. Clearly, Mr. Ranieri is not very creative today in making these questions. And we finished because we've figured out what the mystery letter was. The unknown, or the variable, is what that letter is called. And it equals 35. 35 is the number that I can put in there to make it true. So it's the solution. This last one, I've got x divided by -2. So x has been divided by -2. The opposite of dividing by -2 is multiplying by -2. So that divide by -2 here will disappear and it will turn into multiply by -2. Disappears from one side and the opposite appears on the other side. All right, the x gets copied down, the equals the 8. It's just that this thing has moved. It is important that you do another line for this and then another line to figure out the answer. Therefore, x equals 8 times -2. Let's do the sign first, positive and negative. Positive times negative is negative. 8 times 2 is 16. Do you notice how I figure out the sign, the plus or minus, and then I figure out the number? So I try to do them separately rather than thinking of them all at once. And that, my friends, is how you solve one-step linear equations. I hope you had as much fun watching this video as I did creating it. Auf Wiedersehen!